Gonna start recording. All right, we're good to go. So hi everybody, welcome to the TST meeting. We skipped last week due to lack of topics, but the next today and next week we are going to have morning meetings just because of our European audience. And this week specifically, we're going to talk about just one topic, and it is basically a proposal for how to rework the intent installer intent framework backend to make it more modular and flexible, and and in general also more useful. And so Michele and Andreas are going to drive the discussion. I'm going to share the. So you already a presenter, right? So you should be able to.
Okay. Yeah, I can give a quick overview and how is the idea of internet store redesign here. So,
just a quick note, are you sharing anything?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so can you see my screen?
I cannot.
I can.
Ken can.
Okay.
Now I cannot.
Oh, please wait.
Now I can.
Shake hands again.
You need to go. Yeah, you need to change it again. Button. Yeah, I'll switch.
There we go.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, first, I will talk about what's the problem we meet. First is to create a new type of intent is easier, but they are very limited because all intents will compile to currently 3 installable intents, and to implement new logic for new installable intent makes intent installer very complex because currently the intent installer is not scalable. So if you want to add new installable intent to let intent installer install, you need to write if the intent instance of some installable intent and create some kind of context. So because currently I need to modify the fluctuative intent. So I know this is it makes the intent store very complex and very big. So the basic idea of the redesign make it very general, which means also scalable, which means you don't need to write any hard code, for example, to write a lot of conditions to check which installable intent. You just need to register installable intent to the installer, and it's just like the intent compiler design. And okay, so for each intent installer, it should be a component, and it should be stateless. But currently, it can interact with some distributed store like fluctuative store or floral store, or even like a group store or resource service. And here's the featured power store, right? And basically, we will have a intent registry, like a compiler registry. All intent story can register to this registry, and when there's an intent compiled to an installable intent, you will use this registry, and the intent coordinator will choose the installer from this registry and use the installer to install the intent. And the ON installer will report the installation status to the coordinator, and the coordinator will also change the intent state to the intent store. Here's the basic workflow of the new intent store. First, the intent will compile to installable intents and submit to the intent coordinator, and coordinator will submit to different installer if there's a different installable intent. Yeah, and the coordinator also will merge the result come from the installer and change the state to the intent store. So there's a basic idea for redesign. Yeah. Is there any question or something unclear of this part? Maybe this architecture.
I think that this looks a lot like sort of the original design before we promoted the notion of flow objectives and flow rules up to the intent compilers. So I think going back to this design, as you mentioned, has a lot of merits. It moves the level of abstraction slightly higher. It decouples the implementation of the abstraction. So yeah, I think that in general this is a fairly reasonable idea, and I don't know that it will be. I mean, it'll require taking a few of the compilers and kind of turning them more into installers. It may also potentially require that we kind of change the narrow waist, so to speak, of installable intents to essentially like link collection intent or something else. But in general, I think this is a reasonable idea.
Yeah. Okay. So.
This is Andreas talking. Well, my question is about the reasoning behind this redesign. Is it only for more modularity in the system, or there are also some other aspects like performance?
Because now the installable intent is very limited. For example, if we want to create another new installable intent, for example, if you want to create an installable intent for different kinds of data plan or different kinds of data plan, we need to add new like hardcore to current intent installer, and it makes current intent installer very complex, I think.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is that I had a discussion with Pier last week, and he told me about some quality assurance test for .9 release, and he told me that there were some performance issues. I'm not so sure about the reason, if they are related with directly with the Internet installer. And the other issue here mentioned to me is about callbacks that are currently used. I don't know, maybe at least Pierre was so, let's say, in favor of these callbacks. I'm not sure if you are aware of the callbacks that I'm talking about.
I'm not sure you are
they were mentioned at the end of the document where the initial ideas for the redesign were mentioned. Basically, I will paste a link to this document.
Okay.
Actually, currently, the intent installer for each intent installation creates an intent installation context, and there it based on the type of the installable intents, whether they are flow rules or flow objectives, it creates the appropriate operation context. And each context is responsible to communicate the intent installation request to the appropriate service. For example, to the flow rule service, flow objective service, etc. And after this, based on the result reported by the service, operation contexts get this information via callbacks, and then the operation contexts in their turn report via a new callback to the intent installation. And the intent status is updated accordingly in the store. I don't know, at least Pierre had some concerns about this model.
Yeah,
And
for
I
new
don't know
design,
if it is.
For new design, the intent installer will reply the status to the intent install coordinator. For all design, it will use the context, right? And everything for the intent status change is hard coded at the intent installation context now. Yeah.
Okay.
So if I can chime in, so I guess the picture that you were just describing, Andreas, which is in the bottom of the design document, I view that as a sort of a lower level detail, which clearly needs to be fleshed out as part of defining the boundary between the coordinator and the intent installer implementations. So the on the slide right here, the orange boxes, which effectively together define the bidirectional boundary. I think they ought to be designed, or they to be written up before we start, before we start cutting into the existing implementation. And so we should try to define those interfaces or something that represents them. They don't have to have exactly these names. But we basically need something for an abstraction of an installer, and we should have some sort of upwards, sort of a reverse abstraction of the coordinator that the installers themselves can lean on as a base through which they can, update the state of the, basically update the progress of the installation. And so I think we should start by, now that we have the general structure, and at least if we have an agreement on a general approach, we should start designing those interfaces and code review them. And after that, I think we can start figuring out what's the best way to start the refactoring exercise.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so as far as I understand, the way on is via code reviews, right?
That's what I would suggest. I mean, clearly, the code reviews are not great for this sort of a discussion, right? For discussion of the general approach and sort of motivations. This is the forum to do it. But as long as we can achieve some agreement, then after that, I think we can move to straight code reviews of the interfaces.
Okay, I have one question.
So today, intent installer implementation is keeping track of stages, like install the tail, then the head kind of thing. Will that functionality remain in the intent installer side, or is it going to move out to the coordinator side?
Coordinator should change the intent state from, I think, from installing to install.
No. I'm not talking about the intent state. I'm talking about, so for example, for rule intent want to install a bunch of for rules.
Yes.
Let's say like 3 hops. In that case, you want to install the last 3 hops first. Once that's complete, then start installing the head and node. That kind of stage, installation stage within a collection of installation, if I would say. That kind of state tracking, phase tracking or stage tracking is happening inside the intent installer today. So I was wondering, is that going to remain there, or is that going to be pulled out to the coordinator's role to do phased installation?
So just one question, sorry, to clarify, is that specific, for example, to OpenFlow?
No,
you mean the no.
Generic.
No.
So
check the for installation.
So
yeah.
As far as I know, it's also applicable for domain intents.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a good question. At least I was hoping that the intent installers themselves could remain stateless, at least as much as, well, let's just call it entirely stateless, and which is why I think some sort of a operation or installation context would be required to house the state, and whether or not all of that state needs to be persisted and distributed, or whether some of it can be transient, that's something that should be discussed. But I was hoping that the installers themselves would be stateless, but then the state, such as the one that you described, Yuta, would be maintained in some installer-specific context. But if that's not the best approach, I mean, I'm willing to definitely, proceed from that and listen if there's good arguments for keeping them stateful.
I agree that, I mean, state should be extended out to the context of something.
Just speak up, otherwise people won't hear you.
Mike's too, right?
Yeah, but it's very bad.
Oh. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, one primary reason for keeping them, I mean, there's a number of them, but I guess the primary reason for keeping them stateless is that if he condense and sort of concentrate the state in the installation context, that is something that can potentially be distributed across the cluster if needed for operations to be able to resume elsewhere in a case of failure.
I think the Yuta point out a good point. The reason is installers, like when we establish a path from start to the end, we have the multiple internal nodes in the middle. So the which one need to be installed first? That is depends on how you configure network and path. So the point in the current implementation, we probably use the fixed orders, like start from the endpoint backward to the start. That is probably the one order. In the future, in the real network deployment, we could see the different orders depending on your traffic and how you install your service, like VNFs in your network. So the overall over here, I completely agree with okay. So that we need a global level. It's like orchestrators in the install coordinators. That level should make decisions which one need to be installed first, no matter it's a global level or the intent domain level. So that one need to be decided first. Okay. So then in the each individual the installers, they could manage a couple of the ports, a couple of the devices. How to do that? That is the second decision making. So I think in such case, the installer we need to provide a policy-driven architectures to maintain these orders. That is my my comments. If you have more, if you agree, or you can add more.
I think I have same issue of ordering because to install the fluctuative to the device, it should have order because next object should install first, then comes for the objective. So the order is like.
I think the order is not fixed. It should be decided by the deployment and the real network, the situation, configuration topology. So that order need to be flexible enough. And my personal point is need to be driven by a policy, not just by the hard-coded or something. Yeah.
So, any question about this?
So no, I guess I don't have a question to the general approach. I think just like Brian said, this seems to be consistent with sort of the original approach, though slightly different, but very similar. And so I guess the only question I have is what is the how is the team going to proceed with implementing it, and what's going to be sort of the division of the labor? Because I mean, we have it's almost like a brigade, right? Is this going to be run under the deployment brigade, or is this just an ad hoc effort between?
Yeah, I mean, I would say whoever comes up and want to do it, whatever is called intent or deployment or whatever, I mean, I guess it's just fine in terms of name. I guess in this moment it's more important who want to participate in this effort and how we want to split the work, right?
Yeah. Do we have some resolved issue of the current intent installer?
I don't know. Do we? You're working on it.
I don't know. I'm not sure if something from Gary has emerged or.
I don't know.
Yeah. Also, one thing, a specific one thing I wanted to note: there are a number of changes that Michele and the team have in awaiting, and I would like to make sure that work has been preserved. So if it needs to be, we need to find a good way to merge it, because if this is going to, if this rework is going to change things in a way that would invalidate some of the changes that that Michele and team has done, that would be a shame. So if you can figure out how to slide Michele's changes in before we start digging this up, I think that would be good.
Okay.
So Andreas, do you think that we will be impacted by these changes? I mean, our intent installer could be an implementation of a specific intent installer, right?
Yeah. For sure, we will be impacted, and actually it depends on, of course, on the implementation. But I think that since we are participating also in this effort, I'm talking about the redesign, I think that we can follow up well the changes, and I don't think that there will be a big issue.
Yeah, so it would be very helpful if you can, if both of you can stay closely involved with the definition of the interfaces and with the review. However, the work is going to be divided, but if you can stay closely involved so that you can provide your feedback and comments, I think that would be extremely important, because we certainly want to make sure that where we move this, it's going to overcome some of the difficulties that may have existed before for you. And then perhaps you can then decide after the interfaces have been defined, and the responsibility between the coordinator and installers have been more crystallized, then you can decide whether you do your merges before or afterwards.
So just rethinking a little bit about what Thomas said before, I said it's not important whatever we want to call it, but it's also true that seems that almost for the first time we have a group of people that is sharing the same goal around intent. So why don't we try to call this group of people? It could end just with this task, right? But why can't we try to call this group Intent Brigade, give them an email address just for the purpose of sharing messages, and let them work on the same goal? Does that sound reasonable, or?
Sounds perfectly reasonable to me. I mean, that's fine.
That's exactly what a brigade should do, right? It's just a group of people around the same goal, and this seems to be perfectly the case. Then our intent framework, or that we do just a task, whatever. I mean, let's start from there, and then we'll.
Do you have a charter for the brigade? Do you want to just add this to that charter?
Yeah. I mean.
Right. I mean, we can call it whatever the name is, but we can call it even.
We already have a charter set up for an intent brigade.
Well, no, I understand, but the chart. What's the chart? Sorry.
What work will that brigade be doing, right? So instead of creating more brigades, we can class this into that brigade and this other brigade.
Sure. I'm just suggesting to call it generically Intent Brigade, even because now probably the name is just on a PowerPoint or in the wiki, but there's no group, there's no one, right? It's Michele that. Yeah.
We have a meeting at 10, guys.
Right. Next hour we have that, but again, it seems we don't have anyone for that. Or, well, we started to have the first person yesterday, plus the people that might be involved are the one in the code. So if you want to call that domain, fine, but I mean, this is the work they're going to do for now, right? So.
I think you want it under kind of a intent.
Yeah, intent. Yeah, for sure.
And so an option we have is to hold it.
Yes.
The one that was
yes.
So, Luca, I agree with you. The only problem is that I cannot commit on some effort. I guess that also for Andreas could be the same, but I have some problem to say, okay, I can work 5 hours per week or something like this. It really depends.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I think that's okay. I think that's all right. But clearly, I mean, it would be good if at least we can get a little bit of your time for reviews, for sure, just to make sure that that whatever we come up with meets your needs also, in addition to some of the other objectives.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Also for me. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think the timeline will depend by the person that will really need this, right? If you guys at some point need this stuff, well, it's better you hurry up to make it work. If you don't need it and if you cannot commit time, as Thomas said, just be aware that if you have requirements there, it's better you look at what we are doing, right? But again, we're not looking in the brigades, I think, for long-term commitment. It's just, again, a group of people working on shared goals that work together. So whatever you can put is anyway appreciated.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So Actually, we can talk about this through the brigade, but recently we talked about the intent, the compilers, the installers, and a lot of things. I'm thinking we should add the policy-driven things in the picture, like the order. Good examples. So basically you can define a policy like a backward, forward, random, or specified. Just define the 4 rules to give the orders. So otherwise you can meet the current environment. After we widely deploy this the ONOS, you will see a lot of varieties in the lot of the requirement need to change the orders. So the once in that case we have to come back to do again. So the policy thing combined with the intent. Last time I was think we should add it. This time for this specific case, I have a strong feelings we need to do that.
Well, that's for sure a requirement. The problem is who does that, right?
Okay, so the put the requirement first, then we can collect the requirement, right?
No. So requirements for sure are welcome anytime. The problem is who does that, right? Because I can come up with 200 requirements, they perfectly know. But then someone needs to go, right?
So actually, each brigade run into the similar things we can talk about in the brigade meetings. I'm working on the dynamic configurations, right? So we run into the same issues. So it's someone's provided the requirement, so that someone may not. Okay. So currently we need the right approach to implement the things, not just to do the patch. So we have a limited resource. We should use it smartly. That's my point.
But the point is that the brigade, 3/4 of the brigade, well, let's say half of it, right, comes from outside and doesn't have time to do even the things they're interested in. Yeah. So now imagine that you come from outside and you say, well, we should do this, right? Who from outside should do that?
It's a no outside. We're the community. Everything is the same. Yeah. So no outside. So yeah, you can't just think that anybody's contribute ideas is outside.
Well, good luck, because I don't know.
The point that you're trying to get, Luca, is right. As people are bringing the requirements, we also want to make sure that there's developers behind that to do the work.
I think to get the correct requirement will save us a lot of time, and we can use the limited resource to do the things smartly and more efficiently, not just come back and forth, do it again and again.
I agree on the goal. I'm just saying that in practice, right? Well, who's going to do that?
Okay, so that is not the TST meetings the target.
Yeah, right. Out of scope. Yeah, we can talk about that offline.
Do we have any other topic or
no?
No. Okay. So.
All right. So I think we have.
So I think the just to summarize the action items, I think the next thing that would be good to see is a proposal for what the new class of installable intents looks like, and to have a prototype of the interfaces that are described in the boxes, the orange boxes on the screen right now.
Yeah, and if you have any suggestion, it's welcome to write some to the document, the Intel installer document, which.
Okay.
Yeah, and clearly as part of defining these interfaces, in this simplified diagram, there will probably have to be entities which pass across those interfaces, which are described in the diagram that Michele and Andreas were pointing to at the bottom of the document. So It's not just these things, but also the things that pass over these interfaces.
Okay.
So is there any place you guys have collected the requirement, or is do you have a wikis or something?
No, we only have a document, which Thomas shared in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. Patrick, the motivations are described in the document, and if there is additional motivations, we can certainly add them. But the motivations that are written up in there are sufficient to undergo the effort.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess that's it then, right?
Yeah, I can bring up for sure in the next hour when we have the brigade meeting, this thing. Let's see how we should move forward. Again, I don't care we call it brigade or not brigade, as long as, I mean, we do it, right? But yeah, I mean, it's a good excuse to test this intent brigade. So I'll let you know later on how it goes.
That sounds good to me. So I guess that's it for today. Next week is going to be the same time, and next week we'll be hearing a proposal for a memory management system for an SDN platform. So we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.